Praise the Lord and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a deeply personal saga of a family navigating a literally devastating global economic depression. We're looking at the historical account in Genesis 47, and let me tell you, what we find here isn't just some dusty story from antiquity. No, it's actually a fascinating step-by-step documentation of an absolute economic collapse. We're going to look at exactly what happens when the entire financial system of a global superpower just grinds to a complete halt. So, hooking right into the heart of the matter, we really have to ask ourselves, how does a family survive when the money completely runs out? And I don't just mean things get a little tight at the end of the month. I mean when cash suddenly becomes utterly worthless. Imagine going to the grocery store today. You swipe your card and the cashier flat out tells you, sorry, money is no longer accepted. We only take physical assets, right? The emotional and economic stakes of this unprecedented crisis in the ancient world were absolutely staggering. It forced everyday people to make some truly agonizing choices just to stay alive. Okay, let's dive into this by looking at the initial relief of a family reunion. Joseph, who's amazingly risen to second in command in Egypt, secures this incredible safe haven for his family. He brings his father, Jacob, and his shepherd brothers out of the severe famine in Canaan and settles them right in the land of Goshen. Now, Goshen was the prime real estate, the absolute best land in Egypt. It's kind of like finding a fully stocked, perfectly insulated bunker during a massive natural disaster. Joseph strategically positions his family there, and he even gets Pharaoh's permission to put his brothers in charge of the royal livestock. So they're safe. But the rest of the world? Well, they're about to face the fire. Highlighting the deeply human element of this crisis, Joseph actually brings his father Jacob to stand right before Pharaoh. And when Pharaoh asks his age, Jacob gives this staggering number, 130 years old. But Jacob's response is incredibly raw here. He tells Pharaoh that the days of the years of his life have been few and evil, and that they haven't even reached the lifespan of his ancestors. Wow. It's this profound moment of reflection from a patriarch who has lived through unimaginable betrayal, loss, and now a catastrophic famine. The man is weary, for sure, but he is finally safe. But outside of Goshen, man, the reality was bleak. The text literally says the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished because of the famine. It was so severe that it was literally draining all the money from the citizens. People were spending every last cent they had just to buy grain from Joseph's storehouses. It's basically a textbook picture of hyperinflation and extreme resource scarcity. The cash reserves were completely exhausted. That first pillar of their economy, completely fallen. Now, the crisis didn't happen all at once, right? It escalated in these desperate phases. When phase 1 fails and all the cash is totally exhausted, the citizens actually come to Joseph in a sheer panic. They're saying, why should we die before your eyes, for our money is gone? So Joseph has to move them into phase 2 and eventually into the ultimate sacrifice in phase 3. Let's take a closer look at how these next phases actually unfolded. So when the cash dried up, citizens started treating their animals for food. Joseph basically told them, look, give me your livestock and I'll give you food in exchange. So they brought in their horses, flocks, herds, and donkeys. To put that into perspective using a modern analogy, this is exactly like liquidating your physical assets. It's like selling off your car, hawking your family heirlooms, or selling your business equipment during a massive market crash. Literally just to keep the lights on and put food on the table for one more year. It kept them alive, yeah, but it completely stripped them of their wealth-generating tools. By the following year, the livestock was gone, and the citizens came back to Joseph with a really chilling realization. They said, there is nothing left in the sight of my Lord but our bodies and our land. The grim reality had fully set in. They went from being independent landowners facing starvation to having to surrender their land and their very bodies to become servants of Pharaoh. It was essentially an ancient corporate buyout. Or think of it like a desperate reverse mortgage required simply to obtain seed so the land wouldn't become desolate and they wouldn't, die. Pharaoh essentially bought the entire country, the whole shebang. But hey, they still needed to rebuild. Acting effectively as the Federal Reserve Chairman of the ancient world, Joseph steps up and implements a brand new economic system across the land. He gives the people seed to sow the fields and he introduces a 20% return. So 80%, or 4/5, was kept by the people for their own food, their seed, and their households. And that remaining 1/5, the 20%, was given to Pharaoh. This functions very much like a modern flat income tax rate. It was a massive structural reset of the entire Egyptian economy, perfectly designed to keep the government funded while allowing the citizens to survive and eventually start producing again. So the crucial point grounded right here in the text is that Joseph made this 20% return a permanent statute in Egypt. But there is one absolutely fascinating exception to this rule. The priests of Egypt did not have to sell their land. Why? Well, because they survived on a fixed allowance directly from Pharaoh. It was almost like an ancient form of universal basic income, specifically carved out for the religious class. Because their basic needs were met by this state allowance, they were literally the only ones insulated from that total liquidation of assets. Now, while the Egyptians were liquidating absolutely everything, Israel's story looks very, very different. They settled in the land of Goshen, they gained possessions, and they multiplied greatly. They thrived for 17 years right in the midst of this totally restructured nation. And this brings Jacob's age to 147 years old. As the time draws near for him to pass away, the whole narrative beautifully shifts back from macroeconomics to this intimate, deeply personal family moment. In a deeply poignant final family promise, Jacob calls for his son Joseph. He asks Joseph to put his hand under his thigh, which, by the way, was a solemn, ancient form of oath-taking, and makes him swear a promise. He says, "Do not bury me in Egypt, but let me lie with my fathers. Carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place." Think about that. Even after surviving the ultimate economic collapse and living safely in Goshen all those years, Jacob still prioritizes his legacy and his deep connection to his ancestors. He absolutely refuses to let Egypt be his final resting place. Looking back at this incredible historical account in our explainer today, there are 3 actionable steps we can easily apply to our own daily lives. Step 1, strategically prepare and manage your assets for lean times, exactly like Joseph did before the famine even hit. Step 2, secure provisions and build a safe Goshen for your family during times of wider crisis. And step 3, always keep your profound promises and honor your commitments to your elders, deeply respecting the legacy that came before you. So, we end with this thought. When the ultimate crisis hits, what legacy will you leave to ensure your family's survival? Really think about how you would navigate these agonizing financial choices today and what truly matters when the money simply runs out. I really hope this analysis gave you some powerful perspective. If you found value in this explainer, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.